Welcome to another watch along. I'm your host Kellerman, and in case you haven't heard, there's been a bunch of unidentified drones flying over states in the United States on the East Coast, most specifically New Jersey. Now, early reports were calling them UFOs, and then unmanned planes, and then we thought they were manned planes, and now they're back to being just drones. But what the are they, and where are they coming from? Nobody seems to know. I personally had a lot of people reach out to me from New Jersey about this, so I just want you to know, New Jersey, I see you, I hear you, and what's going on there is really fucking weird. Now, as you may or may not know, my channel is specifically evidence-based facts, so I will not be speculating on what these drones actually are. However, U.S. National Security spokesman John Kirby did hold a press conference that was super weird, so I thought we should watch it together.
Now, finally, I just want to add a few comments on the reports of drone activity here on the East Coast, particularly in and around New Jersey. We have no evidence at this time that the reported drone sightings pose a national security or a public safety threat, or have a foreign nexus. The Department of Homeland Security and the FBI are investigating these sightings, and they're working closely with state and local law enforcement to provide resources using numerous detection methods to better understand their origin. Using very sophisticated electronic detection technologies provided by federal authorities, we have not been able to, and neither have state or local law enforcement authorities, corroborate any of the reported visual sightings. To the contrary, upon
That's
review
already
of available
weird.
imagery, it appears that many of the reported sightings are actually manned aircraft that are being operated lawfully. The United States Coast Guard is providing support to the state of New Jersey and has confirmed that there is no evidence of any foreign-based involvement from coastal vessels.
No evidence of
there are
foreign-based
no reported
involvement,
or
but no
confirmed
evidence of
drone sightings
lack
in
of
any
foreign-based
restricted
involvement.
airspace. Now, that said, we certainly take seriously the threat that can be posed by unmanned aircraft systems, which is why law enforcement and other agencies continue to support New Jersey and investigate the reports, even though they have uncovered no malicious activity or intent at this particular stage. While there is no known malicious activity occurring, the reported sightings there do, however, highlight a gap in authorities. And so we urge Congress to pass important legislation that will extend and expand existing counter-drone authorities so that we are better prepared to identify and mitigate any potential threats to airports or other critical infrastructure, and so that state and local authorities are provided all the tools that they need to respond to such threats as well.
John, on the drones, does the U.S. government have any of its own imagery or video of these systems?
I'm not aware that we have U.S. government produced imagery ourselves, but as I said in my opening statement, we have certainly done thorough analysis of the existing imagery.
Like from people's cell phones that we're seeing? Basically, with what you're looking at, how can you credibly tell people that there is no public safety threat, there's no national security threat?
Right.
That
If you don't know
no
what it
reason to
is, how
believe
can you
that
say that it's safe?
foreign government is involved?
Because the analysis thus far, in an investigation that is ongoing, has not revealed any national security or malicious intent or criminal activity. But, Jackie, I would remind you, we're at the beginning here, not the end. There's a lot more work to be done, and we're working closely with state and local authorities to gain more information. I would argue that we're moving pretty well here.
It's weird how
with a sense of energy
unconcerned
to
he
try to
seems
figure
about
out what
it.
we can do to learn more about this. We're still in the middle of an ongoing investigation, and I'm up here explaining to you and letting you know what we know so far, what we believe so far. If information comes to light that changes that characterization, then my goodness, we'll be the first ones to let you know. But right now, there's just no indication that this is some sort of foreign malign activity, or in fact even criminal.
Well, what I don't
Okay, there's no
understand
evidence
is,
that it's foreign or criminal, but
this has been happening since late November.
What is it?
I don't know that the law enforcement officials or residents in New York and New Jersey, or even the Democratic senators who wrote to Director Ray Mayorkas and the FAA administrator today, would think that this has been handled with a sense of urgency. But that being said, has the President or the Secretary of Defense issued any guidance to NORTHCOM or military installations to act on these systems if they're deemed to be a threat in any way? And what's the benchmark for that determination?
So two thoughts. First of all, you're right, late November. It is now, the 12th of December. So I think it shows that we're moving on with this, and we're going to stay on it. So I want to disabuse you of any notion that we're not taking this seriously, because we are. I can also tell you that if the president, as commander-in-chief,
they're not giving us any answers, except
based
don't
on the
worry about
information
it.
that he'd been given, that there was a national security threat at play here, or even a public safety threat at play here, he would issue the appropriate directives to not only law enforcement, but perhaps even the military if that was needed. I want to go back to something I said at the top. There has been no evidence of any of this activity in or near restricted spaces.
That's not what the senators said in the letter. They said, in fact, that they've been observed maneuvering their critical infrastructure, sensitive locations, including reservoirs and military installations, and cited a concern from law enforcement about public safety threats because a medevac helicopter was prevented from transporting a seriously injured patient for care because of the presence of these drones.
I stand by my opening statement.
Can you make that make more sense? Because I
Make
think
that
people in
make
New
more
York and New
sense.
Jersey see drones the size of an SUV over their house every night and think that that doesn't make any sense.
Certainly I understand why people would be looking at this and being concerned about it. We're concerned about it too, which is why we have the Department of Homeland Security and the FBI. My goodness, looking at this, and we're taking it seriously.
Concerned.
We understand that people are concerned. We understand that they got questions. We got questions too, and we're working hard to get the answers to that. What I can tell you as we sit here today,
You have questions and no
2:16 in the
answers, but
afternoon
you're
on the
also
12th,
not
we
concerned.
haven't seen any indication thus far that there's a public safety risk, and we haven't seen.
The government know what they are.
We are still investigating this. I can't tell you definitively.
You don't know what they are.
I cannot
How can
characterize
you
for
say
you
that's not a
definitively what
risk?
these sightings are. I can just go back to what I said at the opening. We've looked at the imagery. We can't corroborate some of the reported sightings through our own expert analysis using sophisticated detection techniques, but that doesn't mean that, we're putting our pen down here this afternoon and calling it a day. We're going to keep at this.
What are you doing, though?
We are continuing to investigate it, as I said in my opening statement, to federal agencies, as well as the United States Coast Guard and state and local law enforcement officials, which we are staying in close touch with.
Picking up on drones, has it reached a level, or is there a level determined by which the president or the administration, more directly, would prohibit any use of the airspace, since it is regulated, for drones for a period
How
of
many
time
drones do we
try
need to see before you
figure
do
out
something about
who
it?
they are, and to remove this anxiety that people in the Northeast are feeling?
I don't know that we're at a stage right now where we're considering that sort of a policy option, but I can tell you that we're going to keep an open mind here, and I think we're going to.
Can you give us
whatever
anything
policy
that
options
makes
we
us
determine
feel
are appropriate? We'll
more
be informed
comfortable
by
with the situation?
The investigation, and thus far, in this early stage of the investigation, there's just no national security threat that we see, and no public safety risk. So, again, you want to be careful that you don't. That you don't jump to conclusions and you don't jump to policy options that may not be appropriate at this particular stage. But we'll obviously see where it goes, and we'll be informed by investigators.
So that's what National Security Council spokesman John Kirby had to say. Pretty unsatisfactory, if you ask me. Now let's take a look at a press conference held by New Jersey Congressman and Sheriff Chris Smith.
Shockingly said this week, "We haven't seen anything unusual. We know of no threat," close quote. What? The massive invasion of drones observed and recorded by so many of our citizens, including and especially law enforcement and military personnel, many who are here. Is it unusual? Is he kidding? How does Secretary Mayorkas, who infamously told us for years that our southern border was secure and closed when we know it's not, and now insult our intelligence that we haven't seen anything unusual? This is usual? I don't think so. And how
You
can
can't
he
say it's
and
not
others,
weird.
like National Security Spokesman Admiral John Kirby, say we know there's no threat? How do they know that? What aren't they revealing, or are they just saying it? How can anyone speculate or issue assurances to thousands, millions of Americans who have witnessed the drones that there is no threat? For weeks, we've asked for the truth and action to mitigate any and all threats to people and property. Now, we are demanding it. As the sightings increase, including by service members at Naval Weapons Station Earl, and I did talk to the commander there, his men are seeing it right there at the base. Are you kidding me? A munitions depot of that caliber, and these drones are hovering in close proximity to it. The Coast Guard told me the other day, and Sheriff Mastronardi, that one of its 47-foot rescue boats was followed in very close proximity off its stern by numerous drones. Why can't we bag at least one of these drones and get to the bottom of it? Why can't we even track them? I asked Secretary Mayorkas at a briefing, a Zoom briefing, why we can't follow them, find out where they're going. They're coming from somewhere. Okay, you can't seem to do that. Why can't we follow them and find what their origin is? Many of them seem to be coming from the ocean. I was with Sheriff Mastronardi the other day on the beach, and we saw a video, and we talked to one of his deputies talk about how she had seen 50 of them coming from the ocean to mainland.
Unverified report, but
there?
still weird.
We don't have the capability to do that. We don't have control over our airspace. And just remember, ladies and gentlemen, the feckless response to the Chinese Communist Party's spy balloon. When that thing traversed America and went over one very sensitive base, including the B-2 bombers base, after another. We did nothing except say, oh, it's a spy balloon. Or is it? Or is it a weather balloon? I still can't get over that one. The elusive maneuvering of these drones, I would suggest a major military power sophistication that begs the question whether they have been deployed to test our defense capabilities, or worse, by violent dictatorships, perhaps maybe Russia or China or Iran.
This
or
is
North
pure
Korea.
speculation.
I mean, they have the capability, and they certainly have the motive. The Pentagon has said the drones are not ours. I've written Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin asking the Pentagon to authorize the use of force to down one or more of these unmanned threats to uncover the mystery. Bring them down over the ocean, over an area where there's no population.
Makes
Bring
sense.
them down and find out who's doing it. Knowing that drone warfare has radically changed warfighting in Ukraine and Russia, the Middle East, and elsewhere, this is not the time to trivialize or dismiss the threat. I want to express the profound thanks that I and my colleagues have to both Ocean County Sheriff Mike Mastronardi and Monmouth County Sheriff Sean Golden for doing all within their power and authority to aggressively investigate and track drone appearances. They are doing an amazing job. As many of you know, state and local law enforcement is precluded by law from taking more decisive action, which is why DOD must. They are the ones who have the ability and the authority to act. Congress, yes, and the president, yes, need to move quickly to expand state and local authorities' powers. But DOD has it right now.
It's a video of one of the
Sheriff
drones over
Golden
there.
wrote me a few days ago requesting legislation to empower the state police to seriously protect at-risk persons and infrastructure, and if necessary, bring down a dangerous drone or drones. I am now drafting that bill and will soon introduce it. I want to thank him for that idea. I'd like to now yield the floor to Sheriff Mastronardi and then to Sean Golden. Sheriff.
Thank you, Congressman. I just want to clarify a couple of things that have happened. We have a very robust drone program in Ocean County. We've had it for 8 years or more. We're very fortunate. It's headed by Sergeant Fennessy. When we started to get these reports at the 911 center from local PDs, we went out and we decided to do a drone patrol, more or less. And we took our tethered drone, which you see over here, that the officers are demonstrating, and we put it up in the air on Saturday night a week ago. At that time, Sergeant Fennessy, who's an experienced drone operator and pilot, and Officer D'Amico spotted one of the items that brought us concern. They videotaped it as far as they were. They got some tape on it. They described it as going around their drone. and traveling off at a high rate of speed. They reported to us that it was, they felt it was 60 miles an hour or more. And to put it in perspective, our drones only go about 40 miles an hour. So that's number one. Sunday night, we were out again. This time was Sergeant Fennessy once again. And at that point, we got notified by our 911 center that there was concern of a sighting in Island Beach State Park. We responded. We met an officer, a certified New Jersey law officer, not from our department, from another agency. And that officer did an excellent job. She documented. That's where you're getting the reports of 50 drones coming off the ocean. That's what she reported seeing. She was on duty at the time, and she reports that she saw 50 drones coming from the ocean
No video
to the
of the 50
mainland,
drones.
transversing the airways over Island Beach State Park, going down towards Barnegat Light, and coming to the seaside area.
Unfortunately, cannot just
As a
take
result
someone's
of
word
that,
for
we
it.
continue to operate. We've obviously notified all of our partners, FBI, State Police, Coast Guard. Coast Guard cutter put out a boat at a Barnegat Light. They reported to us what the Congressman referred to the comments. I have not spoke to the people on that boat directly. So what are we doing? We're taking proactive, working with Sheriff Golden, our partner, also Sheriff Nolan, Cape May County, and Sheriff Donahue from Atlantic County. We're taking some, trying to document what's happening, if there's anything happening off the coast of New Jersey. But, you know, obviously there's a lot of attention to this matter throughout. Social media is a little bit different than it used to be. Than when I first came on the job, so that's something you have to control too, because people are putting
It's
everything
true.
out
It
there.
is, to be clear,
We
it is
were
possible
looking at
that
the time
some
that
of the
the
videos that are circulating
Sergeant
are
Fennessy
just
reported
planes
seeing the
that
drone. We have
people
flight
are
radar
misidentifying or
mapping
unable to
capabilities.
identify.
And we did not see anything on indicating it was
But
a
that's
plane.
certainly not the case
We
for
get
all of
numerous
them,
reports
all the
of
videos.
planes. On the other side of the coin, we get people reporting drones when we look right at the radar and say, no, that's a plane going over your house. And then they want to argue with you and say, no, no, no. So just so you know, the flight path to JFK out here, what we see is that they're traveling about 18 to 20,000 feet in the air. And coming out of Newark, going south in the western part of the county, they're about the same.
Yeah, there are
18
still
to
just
20
normal
south.
planes flying
The
around
ones coming from the islands
over
that are going
New
to land at Newark
Jersey.
come over our county at about 6,000 feet. These drones are less than 1,000. So obviously they want us to know they're there. They put on their lights.
So there are
so
some things
who it
flying
is,
lower
I
than
wish I could tell
planes
you.
with lights on,
We don't know.
so that we can see them.
We keep telling everybody says, well, it's the government. I don't know, but I think the government has a responsibility, in my opinion, that if it is them, just tell us.
It may be the government,
we'll
but they
happy
are
about it.
not
If it
saying
isn't,
it's
we gotta
us.
get some
That's
answers. So
what's weird.
We continue. We see a lot of activity out here. We see other agencies now paying attention to New Jersey, thanks to Congressman, his support. So hopefully we'll continue to get some answers in a short period of time. In the meantime, I can assure the resident of Ocean County, working with my partners in Monmouth, Ocean, and Atlantic County, that we'll do all we can to document and see what we have out there and address. We have teams that go out from our CSI unit when we get reports to try to document. We had an officer out. We have some special camera lenses that we're looking at, that they're up there and trying to convince the homeowners that, yeah, that's a planet, you're okay. So some of it's difficult on the other side. So we want to make sure we're just fair, reasonable.
Not
and
every
let's deal with
twinkling
just the
light you
facts.
see in the
Thank you very
sky
much.
is a
Sheriff Golden?
is a drone.
Thank you, Sheriff Mastronardi, and I want to thank
Oh
Congressman
man, it must be
Smith,
frustrating to be
for your
investigating something that's a
tireless
legitimate
effort. When your
problem and have
constituents have a
people talk
problem
about
in Monmouth
sightings
and
that
Ocean
are
County,
obviously not
Congressman Smith is
part of
always
the
there,
problem.
and we have a problem, right? We have a number of reports that had occurred over a month ago in North Jersey, has worked its way down to Monmouth and Ocean County, continues night after night to be a problem and an issue for our residents. And as the Congressman said, our own military personnel from two different locations, Picatinny Arsenal and Naval Weapons Station Earl, as well as numerous first responders and public safety people, have identified these objects in the air. So for Washington to just shun off those type of issues and say it's all planes, right, is not good enough. And I know Congressman Smith is taking it to it. I want to thank, though, Colonel Callahan and the New Jersey State Police and our Office of Homeland Security Preparedness here in New Jersey, because they're doing all they can with the limited amount of technology and limited resources to monitor the situation, to provide.
Yeah, I read that they tried to follow
data
one themselves. I think that's what he was talking about earlier. But
and I think they're doing a fantastic job.
Drones in
doing
question
so.
just easily evaded
but again,
our
they're limited.
New Jersey's drones.
Part of our conversations with Congressman Smith early on, as he knows, was we need to have our legislation keep pace with the laws and the operation of drones. It has not, right? We know that the FAA and the federal government is solely in charge of the airways and the drone operations as we see it today. We're calling upon Congress, and Congressman Smith is leading the way, to modify legislation so that not just 3 federal agencies are able to have drone detection and de-drone equipment, right? To be able to put that hands in the state policing units around the country. This is a national public safety and security issue, right? If
Man, it's annoying that they keep playing this one video that they have of a drone.
Public safety issue. In order for the state to react,
there's so many videos
units from around the country
show another
will
one.
need new technology to detect drones, recreational or commercial. They will need laws that assist them and be able to de-drone, right? That means if we have large-scale gatherings that don't involve our federal partners, we must be able to monitor any of those drone actions above those gatherings and take action, right? And the only way to do that is to change the federal laws that we see today to keep up with the technology and to make sure that those laws keep up with the pace of growth and deployments. We have drone delivery systems going commercially. We see Amazon and Walmart, all of our corporations, right, expanding for drone technology. But what we don't see are the laws and rules and regulations to keep up with that. That's why in my letter transmitted to Congressman Smith, it had several points. One of those points in there, commercial or retail regulation, all have to show up on some type of map so that our first responders know that they're there. It can't be voluntary. It can't be an app that a private organization in AirAware has made up. It's very useful, it's good, but it's not coming off the FAA radar. So the FAA has to step up. They have to integrate that technology for drone detection into
I feel like this
FAA
is like the next step. Let's identify them first, and then we can figure out how to create better laws
and press upon
to identify them in the future.
Our federal government right now, because of those laws, as Congressman knows, is the only way that we're going to get resolved to these issues today. They're the only ones that have the technology, they're the only ones that have the law, and they're the only ones that can come in here and identify the sources. Because again, at the state level, county and local, we don't have that tech, we don't have the authority to even take one of these down, right? And until that change happens in Congress,
there was a report that one had crashed, but it ended up being fake.
So for the hundreds of reports and the hundreds of sightings with trained personnel, for the federal government to just shun this away is unreasonable, quite frankly, unacceptable. And I know Congressman Smith is working on it. I know our Governor Murphy had transmitted a letter to the White House just yesterday asking for more resources so that we can get to some solution or resolve to these sightings. Now, to our residents out there, there is some fear and apprehension. Let me say this. We mentioned Flight Aware or Air Aware and Flight Radar 24. You should download them. If you're looking up in the sky and you think you see something,
check and make sure it's not a plane.
See if there's anything available before you contact us.
Before you call 911.
We are getting a lot of false calls in. Here's what I would recommend. Number one, do not call 911. It's not an emergency unless you see one of these things crash, right? That would be an emergency. Please don't call 911. Notify your local police department via the non-emergency landline. They will get to it. They'll record it. They will send it up to the county sheriffs we will record it, and certainly we'll send that to our state Homeland Security by way of SARS, our Suspicious Activity Reporting System. That's number one. Number two, there's been a lot of talk about shooting these things down. I want to say this.
Don't do that.
As a resident or a gun owner, lawful, please do not do so. A discharge of firearms in those kind of zones, you will be breaking many state laws. And certainly we just discovered and just discussed the federal laws that you would be breaking in trying to take down a drone. So please don't do that, right? Third, if you see one or you see a line, I don't know that you should call 911. I mean, make the notification to the local law enforcement. In other words, could those be planes in the approach path to our neighboring airports? Certainly. But when you see several, as we had reports of last night and the night before, 5 or 6 weaving in and out at a low altitude, that would be the time to notify us
those are planes,
locally
if they're
and
doing
at the
that.
county level so we can investigate a little bit further. I want to thank the public for their cooperation in those steps, right, and keeping everybody safe. Again, I want to thank Sheriff Mastronardi working together with our drone units and our technology. We continue to monitor those different reportings that we are receiving still in a flurry last night in Monmouth County, and we'll continue to monitor that. And I want to thank Congressman Smith yet again for stepping up, bringing attention to the matter, trying to bring federal resources to bear so that we can resolve or get to the bottom of this issue. We're going to turn it over to
John Peterson.
Mayor. I think we're going to turn it over to the Mayor, John Peterson. Thank you.
Tall one, he stays in the back.
I am in the back, but I thank Congressman Smith, thank Sheriff Mastronardi, our neighboring Sheriff Goldman, all of whom have joined together at our meeting in Seaside Park just the Thursday one back, December 5th. Our residents reported
Why is this guy built like the
drones,
Kingpin from
and
across
that was
the
the night, if
Spider-Verse?
you recall, the winds were howling here along the coast, 35 to 50 mile an hour gusts. There is no way, absolutely, that these were any hobbyist drones. They were something far above and beyond that. These issues are very, very concerning, and the response from the federal government is very, very insulting. And I thank all of my colleagues here standing together. We're demanding answers. It's for our safety, it's for our well-being, and it's the responsibility of the federal government so far, which has fallen on nearly deaf ears. So thank you all, and thank Mayor Vaz as well, and Chief Boyd next door, all keeping us safe.
So there you have it. Lots of questions and no answers, so, like, what the f***? Tell me how you feel about this drone situation below, and follow me if you give a shit.